pulse of him.
I wasn't supposed to be there that night. The club was loud, crowded, excessive, the kind of place I only showed up to when visibility mattered more than comfort. I'd shaken hands, accepted compliments, smiled the way men like me learned to smile. Influential. Untouchable. Straight. That last part had never been questioned, least of all by me. Then I saw him. He was sitting alone at a small round table near the bar, legs crossed, one delicate hand wrapped around a tall cocktail glass. The lighting caught the shimmer on his eyelids, the soft curve of his cheekbones. He looked unreal. Not trying to be seen, not performing, just existing, quietly luminous amid the chaos. My first thought was automatic. Beautiful girl. The second thought landed like ice water. Not a girl. I looked away immediately, jaw tightening, heat rushing to my face. I told myself it was the lights. The alcohol. Fatigue. Anything but the truth forming in my chest. I'd built an entire life on certainty, on control. Men like me didn't have moments like this. But my eyes betrayed me. They went back on their own. He lifted the glass to his lips, eyes lowered, lashes dark and thick. The movement was soft, almost shy. Something in my stomach pulled tight, sharp and unfamiliar. Desire, unmistakable and deeply unwelcome. I felt disgust, at myself, not him. A harsh internal voice snapped into place, cataloging everything wrong with this reaction. I was powerful. Respected. Married once. Divorced cleanly. My reputation didn't bend, didn't blur. I turned my body away from him completely, forcing conversation with the man beside me. Laughed when appropriate. Nodded. Performed. But my awareness stayed locked to that table like a magnet under skin. When I finally left the club, the night air hit me hard. I stood on the sidewalk longer than necessary, breathing, grounding myself. I told myself it was nothing. A fluke. A trick of presentation. That I'd forget his face by morning. I didn't. He followed me into sleep, into the quiet spaces between meetings the next day. The memory of his stillness, his grace. I condemned myself for it every time the thought surfaced. Shut it down. Buried it. 3 days later I broke. I was sitting in my office, city spread beneath the windows, phone in my hand. I didn't hesitate. I called in favors I rarely used, spoke carefully, vaguely. A description. A club. A night. It didn't take long. It never does when people want to please you. His name was Leo. He lived quietly. Small apartment. Part-time work at a boutique cafe. No scandals. No chaos. Just routines. I told myself I was only curious. That knowledge would extinguish the fixation. Instead, it fed it. I didn't approach him. Not then. I watched from a distance that felt safer. Anonymous flowers left at the cafe. A book delivered to his address, no card. Small things. Controlled things. I justified it as harmless. Even generous. But late at night, when the city dimmed and the world stopped asking things of me, I wondered who I was becoming, and why the thought of him noticing, truly noticing, made my chest feel tight in a way power never had. By the end of that first week, the denial had thinned into something fragile. Not acceptance. Not yet. Just the quiet, terrifying awareness that I was already in deeper than I wanted to admit. I told myself I was being careful. That word became my shield. Careful meant distance. Careful meant never letting my name touch his life. I adjusted my routes, my timing, my habits, just enough to stay unseen. I watched from parked cars across the street, from the corner table of cafes, from reflections in glass. I justified it as observation, not obsession. Leo's life was small in a way that felt intentional. He worked mornings at the cafe, hands steady, smile gentle but reserved. Regulars adored him without really knowing him. After work, he walked home instead of taking transit, headphones in, steps unhurried. Evenings were quiet. Groceries. Reading. Sometimes a late night walk with his hood pulled up, makeup gone, face bare and softer somehow. Seeing him like that did something to me. Without the club lights, without performance, he was still breathtaking. Not fragile, precise. Like he knew exactly who he was, even if the world didn't always know what to do with him. I should have stopped then. Instead, I escalated. The gifts changed. Less anonymous, more thoughtful. A handwritten poem printed on quality paper, slipped into a book at the cafe's shelf exchange. A scarf left folded neatly on his bike seat the morning after a sudden cold snap. Never expensive. Never traceable. Always something that said, "I see you." I noticed a shift before he did. His shoulders tensed more often. His eyes scanned rooms when he thought no one was watching. He lingered over each gift, reading, touching, thinking. One afternoon, I saw him refuse a ride home from a coworker, choosing to walk faster instead. Guilt hit me then. Sharp and unwelcome. That night I didn't sleep. I told myself I'd gone too far. That whatever this was, it had crossed into something dangerous. I decided, firmly, that I would stop. The next day I didn't. Because that afternoon, I saw him cry. It was raining lightly, the kind that barely shows on pavement. He stood under the cafe awning after his shift, holding the scarf I'd given him, fingers clenched around the fabric. His face crumpled in a way that wasn't fear, but relief. Like something had reached him when he hadn't known he needed it. He wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed even though he was alone. Something in my chest broke open. That night, I left one final thing. A small envelope. Inside, just a card. No handwriting disguise. No poetry. Just 4 words. You are not alone. I didn't watch him receive it. I went home instead, sat in the dark, and waited for the feeling to pass. It didn't. In the days that followed, his caution softened. He still looked around, but now there was curiosity there. Hope. He wore the scarf openly. He kept the book with the poem close. I saw him smile to himself at nothing, and it felt like a secret I didn't deserve. For the first time, I wondered what would happen when secrets stopped being enough. The idea terrified me. But beneath the fear, something quieter took shape. A want I could no longer dress up as curiosity. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was attached. And the realization settled slowly, heavily, like night falling over a city that never really sleeps. The first message came from him. Not to me, never to me, but into the void I'd created. A small social account he'd set up weeks earlier, barely used. No name, no photo. Just a single post, late at night. If you're out there. I think I'm ready to talk. I stared at the screen for a long time, pulse loud in my ears. This was the moment I told myself I wasn't pushing toward. The line I swore I wouldn't cross. Yet my fingers moved with certainty I didn't recognize. I replied carefully. Brief. Respectful. No pressure. Only if you want to. The response came minutes later. I do. I'm just scared. That honesty disarmed me more than anger ever could. We didn't rush. Messages were sparse at first. Short check-ins. Observations about the weather, books, music. He asked nothing about who I was. I offered nothing. It was safer that way, 2 silhouettes talking at dusk. Leo was sharper than I'd expected. He noticed patterns. Gaps in my replies. The way I avoided certain questions without refusing them. One night, he typed, "You're older than me," not a question. An understanding. I admitted it. "Does that bother you?" I asked, already knowing the answer would matter more than it should. "No," he wrote. "It explains the patience that stayed with me." Days turned into weeks. His suspicion softened into something warmer, more fragile. He told me about his childhood, about learning early how to make himself smaller without disappearing. About beauty being both armor and target. I listened, truly listened, in a way I hadn't done in years. And slowly, I let pieces of myself surface. Not my name. Not my position. But truths. Loneliness. Control. The fear of being seen as something I didn't recognize. One night, he sent a photo. Not of his face. Just his hands, resting in his lap, nails neat, sleeves too long. It felt intimate in a way nudity never had. A trust offered carefully. I didn't ask for more. Instead, I sent something back. A confession without identifiers. I noticed you before I meant to. And I haven't been able to stop seeing you since. The typing bubble lingered longer than usual. I thought you might say that, he replied. I think. I've been waiting to hear it. After that, something shifted. Our conversations deepened, stretched late into the night. He started leaving little notes around his apartment, quotes, thoughts, then telling me about them like I was already part of his space. I imagined him there, quiet, thoughtful, allowing someone unseen to matter. Guilt didn't disappear. It sharpened. Because I knew what he didn't. I knew the power imbalance I was hiding behind anonymity. The way my influence could change his world with a single truth. I told myself I was protecting him. That timing mattered. That revealing myself too soon would ruin what was forming. But underneath all that reasoning was a simpler truth. I was afraid. Afraid he'd look at me, not with suspicion, but disappointment. Afraid that once he knew who I was, the careful bond we built would collapse under the weight of reality. So I stayed hidden a little longer. And in that space between honesty and desire, something delicate grew, something neither of us named yet, but both of us felt settling quietly into place. The invitation came from him this time. There's a little art walk near my place on Sunday, Leo wrote. Crowded enough to feel safe. Quiet enough to talk. If you ever want it to be real, even just a little, I read it 3 times. This was the moment anonymity stopped being a shield and started being a lie. I paced my apartment, suit jacket still on from work, tie loosened, city noise pressing in through the windows. I told myself I could say no. That staying unseen was the kinder choice. Instead, I asked, what would real look like to you? His answer came slower than usual. Someone who shows up, he wrote. Even if they don't stay, that settled it. I didn't give him my name. Not yet. But I agreed to come. Sunday afternoon arrived bright and unforgiving. I chose clothes that didn't announce me, dark jeans, a simple coat, no watch. I left my car 3 blocks away and walked, heart beating harder with each step. Power had never made me feel like this. Money hadn't. Control hadn't. He was already there. Leo stood near a row of local artists' tables, hands tucked into his sleeves, eyes scanning faces with careful hope. In daylight, he looked younger. Softer. More real than he ever had in my imagination. When our eyes met, recognition sparked instantly, quiet, electric. We didn't hug. Didn't touch at all. Hi, he said, voice steady but thin around the edges. Hi, I replied. My own voice surprised me. Less certain. More honest. We walked side by side through the displays, talking about nothing important at first. Ceramics. Paintings. A ridiculous sculpture made of spoons. The normalcy of it grounded me. He laughed easily, glancing at me when he did, like he was checking if the moment was still holding. Eventually, he stopped walking. You're not what I expected, he said. I smiled faintly. Good or bad? Different, he answered. Then, after a beat, in a good way. We sat on a low stone wall at the edge of the street, noise fading around us. He studied me openly now, curiosity replacing caution. You've been careful with me, he said. I noticed that. I tried, I admitted. Why? The question was gentle. That made it harder. Because I didn't want to be someone who took from you without giving something real back, I said slowly. And because the truth carries weight. He nodded, absorbing that. Not demanding more. That restraint undid me more than any accusation could have. We stayed there until the sun dipped lower, conversation softening into pauses that felt earned rather than awkward. When we finally stood, he hesitated. I don't need everything today, he said. But I don't want secrets forever. You won't have them, I promised. And meant it. When we parted, there was still no touch. Just a shared look that lingered long enough to say, "This matters now." I walked away lighter and more terrified than I had been in years. Because the closer I let him come, the clearer it became. Revealing myself wouldn't just change his life, it would dismantle mine. And for the first time, the idea didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a beginning. After the art walk, everything felt louder. Not in the world, inside me. I went back to my routines with a precision that bordered on desperation. Meetings, calls, dinners where I spoke and others listened. The version of myself I'd worn for decades fit the same as always, but it no longer felt airtight. There were seams now. Tiny openings where thoughts of Leo's slipped through. He didn't message that night. I told myself it was good. Healthy. Space was necessary after something like that. But when my phone stayed dark into the next morning, a quiet anxiety settled in my chest. Not panic. Something worse. Want. He finally wrote late that afternoon. I kept replaying yesterday, he said. I was scared it would feel different once it was real. It didn't. I closed my office door before replying. Neither did I. That truth cost me more than I expected. We began seeing each other like that, carefully, intentionally. Public spaces. Coffee shops where no one lingered. Parks with wide paths and open sightlines. Always daylight. Always distance enough to step back if one of us needed it. The lack of touch became its own language. I noticed the way he leaned slightly toward me when he was comfortable. How his fingers played with his sleeves when he was nervous. Once, sitting on a bench, his knee brushed mine accidentally. He froze, eyes flicking to my face, ready to apologize. I didn't move away. That was all it took. His breath hitched, just barely. The moment passed without comment, but something irreversible shifted. Permission, silently granted. He started asking questions then. Not about my work, not yet, but about my life. Where I'd grown up. What I'd loved before ambition swallowed everything else. I answered honestly, if selectively. Each truth revealed felt like loosening a knot I'd forgotten was there. One evening, as we walked, he stopped abruptly. "You're hiding something big," he said. Not accusing. Observant. "Yes," I replied. "Is it dangerous?" The word hung between us. "No," I said. Then, after a beat, "But it's powerful." He studied me, eyes sharp and searching. "Power over me?" The honesty in that question cut deeper than any demand could have. "Yes," I admitted quietly. "Which is why I haven't told you." He didn't react the way I feared. No anger. No retreat. Just thoughtfulness. "Then tell me when it stops being power," he said, "and starts being trust." We stood there in silence after that, the city moving around us, unaware. I felt something inside me realign. Not breaking. Choosing. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. For the first time, I didn't see the man I'd constructed. I saw the one underneath. The one who wanted, plainly and without justification. I drafted a message and deleted it 3 times. Name. Deleted. Title. Deleted. Influence. Deleted. What remained was simple. "There's something you should know about me. Not yet, but soon. And when I tell you, you'll have the choice to walk away. No consequences. No pressure." The reply came quickly. "I wouldn't be here if I didn't already know that," he wrote. "Just don't disappear." I promised I wouldn't. As I set the phone down, the weight of what was coming settled over me, not dread, not shame, but clarity. I understood now that revealing myself wasn't about confession. It was about stepping out of shadow and allowing someone to see me without armor. And for the first time in my life, that vulnerability felt less like a risk, and more like relief. I chose the place carefully. Not mine. Not his. Neutral ground with clean lines and glass walls, a quiet restaurant above the river where conversation stayed private without feeling hidden. Somewhere honesty wouldn't echo too loudly. Leo arrived first. He stood when he saw me, smoothing his sweater nervously, then stopped himself like he didn't want to perform calm for my sake. That small restraint mattered more than he knew. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," I said, then corrected myself. "No. But I'm here." He nodded, accepting that fully. We ordered without really looking at the menus. When the server left, silence settled between us, not tense, just heavy with meaning. I didn't rush. Power had taught me how to speak decisively. This required something else. "I haven't lied to you," I began. "But I've withheld context." He met my eyes steady. "I know." I told him my name first. Just my name. It felt strangely intimate saying it aloud without armor, like removing a ring I'd worn too long. His expression didn't change, but his attention sharpened. Then I told him what I did. Not embellished. Not minimized. Influence. Reach. The kind of power that bends rooms without raising its voice. I watched him closely as I spoke, ready for fear, for anger, for retreat. Instead, he went very still. "That's a lot," he said finally. "Yes. And you could have used that," he continued slowly. "On me." "Yes," I admitted. The word tasted bitter. "But I didn't want to be someone who did." Silence again. He looked down at his hands, then back up at me. His eyes were clear. "Hurt, maybe, but not broken." "I need to know something," he said. "Right now?" "Not later." "Anything." "Do you want me?" he asked. "Or do you want what I represent?" The question landed perfectly. Clean. Unavoidable. "I want you," I said. No hesitation. "And I'm willing to lose everything else if that's the price." That surprised us both. He studied my face like he was memorizing it, not the man of influence, but the one choosing to sit exposed across from him. When he reached out, it was tentative, fingertips brushing my wrist. The first intentional touch between us. "I don't feel trapped," he said quietly. "If I did, I'd leave." "I know. I feel chosen." The word undid me. We didn't rush after that. Dinner passed in softer conversation, the weight diffusing into something workable. When we stood to leave, he didn't pull his hand away. We walked out together like that, no secrecy, no announcement. Just two men aligned in their choice. Outside, the river reflected the city lights in fractured gold. He turned to me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. "This doesn't make everything simple," he said. "No," I agreed. "But it makes it honest." That night, alone again, I stood at my window longer than usual. The city looked the same. I didn't. Something fundamental had shifted, not shattered, not collapsed, realigned. For the first time, my life felt like it was moving towards something instead of away from it. And in that quiet certainty, I understood this wasn't an ending at all. It was the point where everything finally began to make sense. After the truth, things slowed in a way that felt intentional. We didn't suddenly merge lives or rewrite routines. If anything, we became more deliberate, more aware. I checked myself constantly, not out of fear, but responsibility. I let Leo set the pace, the tone, the distance. Power doesn't disappear just because it's acknowledged. It has to be handled. He surprised me. He didn't retreat. He didn't become careful in the brittle way people do when they feel smaller. Instead, he became more himself. He teased me lightly about my stiffness, my formality. He challenged my assumptions without raising his voice. Once, over coffee, he leaned back and said, smiling, "You know you don't have to earn every moment with me, right?" I didn't know that. Not really. We touched more after that. Small things. His fingers brushing my sleeve when he laughed. My hand resting at the small of his back when we crossed streets. Nothing hidden, nothing announced. Each contact felt like a recalibration, learning how to be present without controlling. One evening, he invited me to his apartment. It was modest, clean, thoughtful. Plants near the window, books stacked in uneven towers, soft lighting that felt chosen rather than accidental. This was his world. Not a stage. Not a performance. "Before you say anything," he said, watching me take it in, "this is me. No polish." "I know," I replied. "That's why I'm honored to be here." He laughed at that, real laughter, unguarded, and something in my chest loosened further. We sat on his couch, close enough that our shoulders touched fully this time. He rested his head against me without ceremony, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't move. Didn't tighten. Just breathed. "You're different here," he murmured. "So are you," I said. "I like it," he decided. I did too. Later, when he fell asleep against my chest, weight warm and trusting, I stared at the wall and thought about the man I'd been, the one who believed certainty was strength, that desire was something to manage or dismiss. That man felt distant now. Not gone, but quieter. In the weeks that followed, I began untangling my life. Not dramatically. Not publicly. But deliberately. I declined invitations I'd once considered mandatory. I stepped back from circles that thrived on assumptions I no longer fit. Whispers started. I didn't correct them. For the first time, reputation mattered less than alignment. Leo noticed everything. "You're changing," he said one night as we walked, fingers interlaced. "Yes," I said. "I think I have been for a while. I just didn't know toward what." He squeezed my hand once. "Toward honesty," he said simply. That felt right. I hadn't told the world yet. Hadn't told him everything either. There were still conversations ahead, hard ones. But the foundation was there now. Chosen. Mutual. As I watched him walk ahead of me, turning once to smile back, I felt something settle fully into place. Not certainty. Commitment. And I understood then that the final step wouldn't be about revelation or risk. It would be about choosing him openly, and allowing myself to be chosen back. I didn't plan a speech. I planned a morning. Sunlight through his curtains, the quiet clink of a kettle, Leo's hair still sleep-soft as he padded into the kitchen wearing one of my shirts without comment. The ordinary intimacy of it steadied me more than any rehearsal could have. This was the version of us I wanted to protect, not by hiding, but by standing where light reached. "There's one more thing," I said, when we sat across from each other, mugs warming our hands. My voice didn't shake. That felt like progress. He smiled, small and knowing. "I figured. I'm going to be seen," I said. "Not sensationally. Not as a confession. But honestly. And I want you to decide, before that, whether you want to be part of it." He didn't answer right away. He looked around his kitchen, the plants, the notes on the fridge, the quiet life he'd built with intention. Then he looked back at me. "I won't be a secret," he said gently. "And I won't be a symbol." "I know," I replied. "You'll be my partner. Or I'll do this alone." That earned a real smile. "Then don't do it alone." The day came quietly. I stepped into rooms I'd always controlled and spoke with a steadiness that surprised even me. No labels offered, no defenses raised. Just truth, measured, personal, unembellished. I didn't name Leo. I didn't need to. What mattered was alignment. The rest would follow. It did. Whispers became conversations. Some doors closed without drama. Others opened in ways I hadn't expected. Power rearranged itself, not disappearing, just changing shape. I learned that influence doesn't vanish when you stop gripping it, it often becomes cleaner, lighter. That evening, I went back to Leo's place. He listened as I told him what had happened, nodding, asking only what mattered. When I finished, he took my hands, thumbs tracing calm circles, grounding us both. "I'm proud of you," he said. No fear. Just pride. We went out later, nothing grand. A neighborhood dinner, a walk afterward. When someone recognized me and looked from my face to his, curiosity flickered. Leo didn't step back. He didn't step forward either. He stayed exactly where he was, fingers laced with mine. That was the moment. Weeks passed, then months. The city adjusted. So did we. We learned each other's edges, the ways we differed, the places we overlapped. We argued softly and repaired quickly. We made plans that felt less like ambition and more like care. On Sundays, we cooked. On Tuesdays, we walked. At night, when the world quieted, we chose each other again without ceremony. One evening, as we stood at the window watching the river move like it always had, Leo leaned into me and sighed. "I never thought this would be my life," he said. "Me neither," I answered, and smiled. "I thought I knew exactly who I was." He tilted his head up, eyes warm. "Turns out you did," he said. "You just hadn't met yourself yet." We stood there a long time after that, no urgency, no need to define the future beyond the next shared breath. The man I'd been, the one who insisted on certainty, felt distant but grateful. He'd brought me here, then stepped aside. What remained was simpler. A choice made daily, a hand held openly, and the quiet, steady happiness of being seen, fully, finally, and choosing to stay.